This is the Intuitive Leadership Mastery Podcast. What would it take for you to double your profits and half your stress with your intuition? Learn how with your host, Michael Light.
Hi, welcome back to the show, and I'm here today with Peter Ivanov. If I'm saying your name right, Peter. I think I may have mispronounced
That's right.
it.
Hi, Michael.
Hi. And Peter is a fabulous expert on virtual teams and has a lot of experience being in business working with large teams across the globe for more than 20 years. And now he has his own business, got a book coming out. What's your book called, Peter?
In German, it's called Power Teams Beyond Borders. So in German, it appears in the end of February. In English, title is not yet fixed, but it will be around building power teams across the globe and tackling, the toughest problem of humanity.
Working with other people, perhaps. Yeah. That's
it
one
says in German, it's like this Power Team Beyond Borders, and then this is a story because it's really a story about virtual teams and how they change our world.
Yeah. Well, and so many companies use virtual teams these days, and they have people from different countries in them. So there's a lot of challenges in that. And I'm hoping you can shed some light on how our business intuition can help in that.
Sure. I think in terms of virtual teams, you probably need more intuition than the local team, because the key characteristic of virtual teams, the ability to communicate face-to-face, is much more limited. People are spread around the globe and they just have electronic media, either interactive or email, like offline communication. So you probably need to rely on your intuition, on your judgment, much more than if you can, spend a long conversation with your teammates. But in terms of intuition and leadership in particular, I myself use it in three areas as a leader, as a manager in the past, and now as an entrepreneur. The first one is when you recruit people, and not just people recruit to work for your team. It sounds a little bit like, you're the boss and you're calling the shots. I'm a big supporter of more self-organizing teams, or people where the leadership is changing hands. And people take the lead at particular point in time of the project. But if you pick your partners, or if you'd like to get a new expert on your team, how do you rely on intuition? So I think there are a lot of HR best practices in terms of scanning the individual. There are a lot of advice of people like Jack Welch, 4 Ps, passion, integrity, and so on. It boils down to the expertise of the person. So he should be an expert in the field that your team requires, but also to his personality, including his value system. If his value system matches your value system, and then your team kind of culture and value system, but also his working style. Sometimes conflict come on the working styles. And you could do a very systematic work. You could even apply some personality profilers and scan your candidates and do the homework, which I would recommend you still do, because this artificial intelligence and the system and the profile become more and more sophisticated, and they could really deep down in the personality. But to be honest with you, in my practice, I've always relied on my intuition. And on the gut feel, on the feeling when I interview this person, if I kind of feel that we could be a great team together. And there are a few cases when I kind of pushed myself to ignore it or to neglect it, where the whole data, the whole on paper, the values and the experience and everything looked right. But somehow I got the feeling that it wouldn't be a good match. And then 1 year down the road, we had to part, and it was sometimes even painful. And not because of non-delivery, but there were other issues. So I think when recruiting people, you still have to do your homework. but rely on your intuition. So that was the first kind of area. Shall I continue, or do you have?
No, I think using when you're recruiting people to a team or to your company, relying on your intuition to make a good fit is very important, because it's very hard to evaluate everything rationally. I'm sure you could have figured out the thing that was the problem with that team member if you'd spent maybe a month analyzing their personality, and all the other things going on, but you didn't have that time available. You needed to get the team started. So that's why intuition is important. It lets you make decisions quicker.
It's a great asset. It may shortcut if you don't have a time, or if you feel you are very much operationally busy and bogged down in details and a lot of work. Maybe this is a signal that you have to step back and rely on your intuition. Rely on your intuition when you prioritize, even step further back and revisit your goals and make sure which goals are right for you, again, using your intuition. Stop analyzing for a bit, refer to your intuition, or even go back to your strategy, because it may be even at this level where you really you have a problem. And I often do this. I take this, whatever you call it, stepping back days or retreat days, just to settle down, cool down, and then revalidate my strategy, my goals, with my feelings, with my kind of intuition internally. And what is intuition? I'm sure it's a subjective thing, and people have different experiences. People feel it at different part of their bodies. Some people, see pictures which help them to decide. Some people may hear words and so on, depending on the sensitivity. But if we refer back to the psychologists, if we go back to, for example, Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, he, analyzing the human personality, he discovered and did quite a research and scientific proof that the human brain has 4 main areas. And we know it's quite popular: left brain, right brain. Left, which is more for analytical, logical thinking. Right brain is more for feelings and parallel thinking, where you could think quick. And he even divided front and back. So you have left, right, front, back, 4 areas, 4 segments. And on the left front, you have the typical planning, thinking side. So he calls it with T, thinking, which is responsible about planning things, analyzing, and working sequentially. On the right side, you have the feeling, so coded with F. So here you have your value system. Here you decide, because it's a right brain, you decide quickly based on your feelings and your value system and belief and so on. And then if we go in the backside of the brain, on the left side you have S, which is for sensing, which is for details. So here you really go into details, and here some people flourish like accountants or controllers, where they could really fly. And then finally, back right is the N, which stands for intuition. So here is the segment where you see the big picture, and you can make calls just based on your, again, intuition or the feeling, which can distinguish between right and wrong for you, for your context, and it is quite strong. And here he made a lot of research, and it turned out that different people have different levels, different areas of their brains developed. Some are more intuitive, for some the N is very strongly developed. Some are more into details, so they don't trust these internal feelings. They probably don't even recognize them and cannot locate them very well, or kind of interpret them. But so they go into details in thinking and planning. That's where they got security. So there is nothing good or bad here. People are different, and with their setup, with their developed way of thinking and brain, they could be successful in different areas. But this is also what the theory says, and my experience. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to have quite strongly developed intuition. You need to have, you should be balanced. Maybe on the detail side, you could delegate because you can have your controllers and so on. But you need strong intuition, which can help you with your vision and the correctness with your vision. You need strong feeling in order to connect with your team. And you still have to be able to plan in order to execute complex projects and drive complex operations. So, for entrepreneurs and for senior managers, the balance is important, but intuition is a critical aspect. If you don't have it at all, I doubt you could be a world-class leader. You could still be a successful team leader, but not, and we started with virtual teams, not able to lead a large team with different, individuals, different cultures spread around the globe.
Is there any way you've used to measure these different 4 aspects of the brain?
Sure. I personally use a profiler called Visual Questionnaire, and I like it because it is language independent. It's based only on visuals. For sure, it's based on very serious research, and German companies behind it, and Airbus is using it for recruitment of all their, probably 40. Only in Hamburg, I think they have 30,000 employees worldwide, much more. But this is a visual questionnaire where you could get in percentage how much thinking you have, how much feeling, how much intuition, and how much, preference for details. And it takes only 10 to 15 minutes. So it's very quick. And because it's visual, you cannot manipulate the result. It gives you similar to MBTI, Myers-Briggs personality test. So it gives you all this also introvert, extrovert, judgmental versus perceiving, and then you have NTF and S. These are also the Myers-Briggs symbols. But because it's a Myers-Briggs test is based on words and sentences, you could to some extent manipulate because having in mind the position you, for example, apply. Whereas with visuals, you completely you just have to rely on your current feeling and judgment. So yes, there is a measure. It is quite accurate, I think, and based on that, you get a profile not just on the NTF and S and percentage and preference, but also which are your strengths, which are your weaknesses, if you wish, how you behave in conflicts. Is quite comprehensive, if you go back to intuition, if intuition is strongly developed, you could see particular strengths and how can you leverage on them as a leader.
And then how would you use that when you're creating a virtual team? I'm using it for my own teams when I recruit new people, and I'm using it sometimes for clients when we do team building. But and recently we did a research again with North Academy, one of the business schools here in Hamburg, where I'm also lecturing. And we took quite a few virtual teams, and we asked ourselves the question, which teams are performing better? More homogeneous teams in terms of personality or more diverse team? And when I'm talking diverse, I'm not saying about different cultures, the typical definition of diversity, or gender mix or age mix. This kind of diversity is always good. At least I'm a strong believer, and I'm always try to diversify. But we're talking about styles. Exactly. If you measure personality, if you have more, for example, judgmental types, which are very structured and go according to the plan, versus perceived people, this is also the MBTI definition, perceived are very spontaneous. For the structured judgmental, there is a goal and they go for it. And for the perceiving, the road and the journey is the goal. So they don't so much care about the goal, but what happens in between. And for example, if you take this characteristic, it turns out that the more homogeneous teams, which you have, for example, in either more judgmental people or more perceiving people, or people with stronger intuition versus, planners or detail-oriented, the more homogeneous team consistently performed better. So this is one way to measure. If you have two different styles for a short-term project, is better, and when I say short-term, it's like could be 1 year, it's better to have more homogeneous personality mix. If you're talking about leadership team with a 5-10 year strategic vision,
then you have a different style. Then you have strong intuitive, then you have feeling visionaries, and you have people very strong in execution in order to operationalize things. So I'm using it on one hand to ensure either a short-term productivity or long-term strategic mix. And also, if you have a challenge and you know the personality types, it's better to group the people with similar preferences in one group and break down the team. For example, the N people with a stronger intuition, the T people, the planners, the feelers, and then the detail guys. Give them the same challenge. You will be amazed and ask for a solution. The proposals will be completely different. One will be, the detail guys will be very strong numerically and logically ordered with a lot of detail. The feeling they would refer, to the people and the vision and so on. The intuition, for sure, they will drive a big picture thing and wouldn't go to any details. But when the team listens to all the proposal, and they will do it very efficiently, there wouldn't be a lot of debate when they produce their solution. If you mix wildly and roughly, there will be kind of productivity loss because of unfruitful debate. But when they listen to their proposals, they will be amazed from the different perspective. And when they listen to all 4 proposals, a kind of a unique new proposal emerge based on the 4 different perspectives, and you quickly come to the decision. So in terms of conflicts or issues, or you need to even elaborate on a new product, some creative challenge, this kind of mixing different personalities is very good. And the strong intuitive people, they always find their home, and they would come with a vision or a mission, something very big and elevated, whereas the other will come with more operational details. But in the end, you will have a rounded result.
That's fascinating. I think that's a very powerful way to use personality tests to make your team well-rounded and more effective. And I love how you group different personality types together so the team can work more efficiently and yet get more better ideas for solving the problem they're working on.
Excellent.
So we talked earlier about stepping back from the details, and you mentioned you do that regularly.
Yes.
Do you find that helps you get in touch with your intuition more instead of just always working on the details? Or
Absolutely, and I do it in like two formats. I do one macro step back once a year, normally around Christmas, because the business is not so active and I can step back. And there I would take half day, sometimes full day to myself. I like nature. It's for me it's a great trigger to kind of get in contact with my intuition and my spiritual kind of being. So once I cool down, I would go through my strategy. And then I would go through a macro plan each quarter. What are my focus areas? And because I'm sometimes I'd like to take many challenges, and this is not necessarily bad, but I always have a top 3 list. So I would distill my top 3 priorities for the year, and I would map them to the quarters. And normally the summertime, Western Europe is again not very busy period, holiday. I have 5 kids. So Q1, Q2, and Q4 are essential for my top 3 priorities. And I would, when I'm not doing very detailed work there, I'm just kind of evaluating this versus this, and I'm listening to my intuition. And then sometimes come new things, emerge. You may group 2 and comes another thing. But this is my macro intuition planning event, which happens in December, early January. And then every week, again, not to be overwhelmed with projects and details, because as an entrepreneur, you could do as much as you're willing to invest time and energy. I mean, there is always, you could do more marketing and more sales and more product delivery and so on. So I consciously, on a weekly basis, normally on Sunday evening, I would see what are my, 4 priorities for the week. And again, I would evaluate them listening to my intuition. Is this the right thing to do or the other, out of the long list? I also have some structure, like Mondays, now that I've written my book and I will launch it, Monday is my book day. Tuesday is my marketing and partners and sales day, so I will do many calls. And then Wednesday, I develop new content because I'm teaching in business schools or have a new keynotes in the pipeline where I have to be more creative and so on. Online shop. So I have some division which may change. Now probably for January, February will be this kind of division. This may change in March and April, but I would review it on a weekly basis. And then during the day, if I feel too tired, somehow too bogged down in the details, I would step back, close my eyes, maybe meditate a bit. For me as a sportsman, sometimes I do boxing with a shadow. Sometimes moving quick also helps to kind of free your head and then go back to the questions, shall I take this or that, and make a call. So I do it on 3 levels, if you wish, yearly, weekly, and daily. And it helps me out to orientate. Whenever, I feel a bit too busy or somehow lost, it helps me to step back, either through very active kind of movements or through meditation. I cool down within like 10 minutes and I would review my situation.
That sounds like a great way to be more productive without getting stressed out, Peter. Do you have an example where, your intuition changed what goal you were going to do for the week?
For example, evaluating partners, because as a keynote speaker, I'm meeting a lot of people, and they could be potential corporations partners. We could do a joint events, or we could do affiliate marketing, and so on. And for sure, I could not properly do it with all of them. It's just a time constraint, my time and their time. So which one to choose? And you have a strategic fit. If you are kind of complementary kind of, and this is, we go analytical again, if you have a complementary products or subjects, or somehow you could refer to each other. But very often it's an intuition call. It's based on the personality of a person. If I trust we could be successful together. If sometimes there is no so good fit on what I know so far, but because I kind of like this person or my intuition tells me we could be successful, I invest time, I proactively engage, and often it brings results. I think I'm as I said, I have examples from the negative ones when there is a perfect strategic fit, and he has clients which may refer me, and that could be a great business opportunity, but somehow it didn't materialize, and I kind of knew it intuitively even before we started. So evaluating which partners is often an example of that. Or I have a tendency also somehow sometimes to pursue the wrong goals, in a sense of I set the goal early in the year in my annual kind of review, and then I go for it. But as the year goes by, I see kind of reach the point of diminishing returns, and it didn't go, and I still persist. Maybe it's my sports nature. And in such cases, and sometimes I spend quite a lot of, effort before I realize you better quit this, park it, take something new and go forward. So for those kind of scenarios, I'm kind of learning by the years. In my early 30s, and in the 20s and 30s, you have so much energy, you don't care, and you just move. But now I'm trying to be more selective, and sometimes if I feel this is the wrong goal, kind of think twice and 3 times, and often I may drop it. So either free space for the existing or replace it with something.
I've had the same experience. I'm very determined to get the goal done. But, I didn't always listen to my intuitive messages that maybe it needs modifying or something else is better right now. So exactly. I think that's a great insight on goals, that they need reevaluating. What seemed good at the beginning of the year, 6 months in may not make sense. And, the world changes so quickly in business and technology these days that the situation may be different. I may be different. The business is different. The partners may be different. all kinds of things can change.
Right. And sometimes it's painful because you spend so much effort, and because of maybe ego or something, you may perceive it as a failure. I could not succeed on that one. But this is the wisdom, not to look at it as a failure or as a wrong investment, but, listen to what's new and, as you say, dynamic and make the right call.
I think one of the things that helps me is to, instead of treating it as like a goal, it's more like I'm going to experiment with this for a certain period of time, whether it's a week or 3 months or a year. And then that kind of helps me relax. It's just an experiment. Exactly. I tried it out. Not all experiments work out the way you expect them to. Sometimes they work out better. Sometimes you do something and you learn something new that I could be doing something even better here. But however the experiment work out in a goal, I always learn something about myself and my business.
Absolutely. I mean, the mindset is a great, it's a great enabler. And there are lots of books, and flow as a, mindset that brings you into flow. It's another subject. But the more you manage to kind of maintain the curiosity and experiment, as you say, like playing and so on, this is essential for your productivity. And and it would protect you from being stubborn and, making the wrong decisions.
Well, I think it also affects how we work with our teams. If I'm very stubborn and judgmental, that's not going to bring out the best in my teammates.
Definitely. And the more virtual team, the more flexible and curious the leader should be. Because, again, you don't have the full picture in terms of you see just the messages, electronic or Skype screen and so on. And the reality is different. I mean, you as a manager, you don't see the reality where this team member operates. So you have to really trust, and trust comes, with experience. It's, again, another broad subject. But stubbornness and trying to impose and to micromanage and all in this direction is very counterproductive, much more kind of catastrophical than in local teams.
Yeah, and it doesn't let other people on the team access their intuition. If they're always worried that you're going to be judging them, then it's hard for them to experiment and come up with creative new ideas that might make all the difference to the project.
Absolutely. This autonomy thing as a motivator, again, touching broad subject. I mean, key motivators in terms of autonomy, being able to make your decisions, and then mastery, being a good expert in your field and learning quickly, and then purpose, why you do it. But intuition, unless people are empowered and can make autonomous decisions and have decision-making freedom, there would be much use. It's particularly if you have strong people with strong intuitions, and you as a manager try to make the calls and impose direction, it wouldn't work. So really, the broader sub-team, not just how do we use it as we discuss in a personal perspective, but empowering people would mean empowering their intuition and giving them a space, time and space to raise their visions and intuition perspective. So you as a team can make the right call. And this balanced dialogue and discussion is key also in terms of communication. And you need the right forums where people could really, everyone on the team, can raise not just their issues and their progress, but also their feelings and intuition and more kind of strategic input.
Right. I mean, some of the tools I talk about in my book are ways to evaluate other people without having to meet them in person. So, I think that's helpful in a virtual team because you may never meet them in person.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's a luxury.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great if you can get together with your team all together in one physical place. That's great. There's a lot more information that get exchanged. But it's possible to access the information you need using your intuition and some tools to do that. So
yeah. I agree. The best is for sure a personal event, and you could structure it in the best way. But as you say, if you cannot, you could still achieve the result and get to the level of even intimacy, get to know them, but everybody to know everyone, not intimacy in terms of, endangering your family and relationships, but deep interhuman understanding and relationship. And yes, I agree. There are tools and mindset to get there.
Well, and that, when I've worked on a team that really works well together, and we achieve an amazing goal, it's an amazing human experience. That's often one of the pinnacles of people's work experience, when they've worked on some project where everyone was connected together, they were all working together for a common goal, and they achieved results that other people didn't even think were possible.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that's where, your power teams and intuition can really help companies to get to the next level with what they do using virtual teams.
Exactly. So, yes, absolutely. It's again another broad subject, but we have teams that I led won 2 global awards, and really the performance was outstanding, and we're still in contact, and we still kind of share sweet memories from the times we had together. But it is possible. It takes quite a few things, but yes, if you care about the people, about their personality, let it unfold. Everyone feels like a star. You discover the strengths and you publish it, and everyone is aware which strengths each team member has and feels like special. And with a lot of recognition, I'm going back to my 10 big rocks, which is the method for leading virtual teams. And you address the goal setting, personality and focus, leveraging on the strengths, then building a structured communication, and then establishing the optimal culture. So this in a mix, yes, you could really have in the end exponentially improve performance and achieve much more than the people initially believed it's possible. And this is the best kind of award you can have as a team and as a leader of such a team.
Great. Well, I'm going to share your website with people in the show notes. It's peterivanov.com with a hyphen in the middle there.
Yes.
And I'll share all the other social media channels you have as well, so people can watch your videos and see what you write about. So
Perfect.
It's been wonderful talking with you today, Peter, and good luck with your book launch, both in German and in English. And once you have that link for the English version of the book, I'll share that as well. I've got the German link as well for our German listeners.
Excellent. Many thanks, Michael. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I look forward to the podcast.
Get strategies and show notes at intuitiveleadershipmastery.com. What would it take to see you here next time on the Intuitive Leadership Mastery Podcast?